Hello and welcome to the Luke and Tony Sports Hour. This is episode 2 with Luke Wickiser and Tony Snyder. Tony, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing really well, man. We'll get into the Indians a bit later on, but there's some choice things I have to say about that.
Oh
I hope
man,
everybody's doing really well and enjoying your weekend. The sun was out today; it was beautiful. So let's kick this thing off.
that's right. Yep, the Cleveland Indians unfortunately lost to the Seattle Mariners 10-0. They now fall to 18-14 on the year, and I think
I
they're two and a
believe
half
that's
games out
correct.
of first.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tony, you were there, and unfortunately, I don't have Fox on Sling here at home, so I really haven't been able to catch many Indians games.
Well,
What did you see today?
nothing good. I will say that I was there as well yesterday, so that was a real treat. But not a whole lot of great baseball happening. We had several home runs yesterday, which is always great, but a lot of quiet outs, very uninspired play. But we did end up with 9 hits, which I wouldn't have known had I not looked at the line score at the end. And Carlos Santana, as per usual, he's up over 300 now.
That's good.
Being the hero with the 2-run blast, and the hand was phenomenal. So a game like that, when you feel like you have no chance and very uninspired, and then you come back and win, you feel very good about it. Well, then today, Cody Anderson, who we hadn't seen for quite some time, had to play in a spot start today because of all the injuries to the Cleveland starting pitching staff. And they had already decided that they were going to limit him to 60 pitches for the start. And I think he got to 38, if I'm not mistaken.
Yikes.
The first out he recorded was the first batter. And then he walked, I think, 2 and gave up 3 hits. And one of them was a grand slam. So
yikes.
It was 4-0, but before we even we weren't even in the park yet, and it was 4-0.
Oh, man.
And the groans were quite audible at the time. And like, well, if we're not careful, this game's already over. And little did we know how bad it would actually get. I will say that the one bright spot for the Indians today was Kevin Plawecki.
Relief pitcher, right?
In the 9th. Relief pitching, and he threw all strikes.
See, I mean, I'm not saying it's easy to throw all strikes, and I'm not a pitcher, but it's like, how bad do you have to be sometimes, you know?
Whereas, yeah, exactly. You know? Well, and you know, these guys that we brought out are not our best guys, obviously, and a lot of them had to be in long relief because of the way the game went. But you know, when it's 5-0, I will say that we were somewhat more patient than we would normally be, but we couldn't get anything across. So it was really frustrating to see a game like yesterday when we should have lost and we won and feeling good about it, and then to lay a complete egg. Now, the Anderson start was because of all the injuries, and there were some things about, well, Bauer was supposed to start, but they didn't want 2 guys from Columbus back-to-back starting, and they didn't want to tax the bullpen any more than it already has.
Which that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But boy, did it hurt today. I couldn't believe it. Yesterday, now he is at the Mendoza line now with today's game, but Jose Ramirez was under 200 yesterday. He was at like 190, 194. And
jeez.
And I can't even remember the other guy. Oh, it was Roberto Perez. Who is not a hitter at all. And he was up over 200. And I'm like, what is wrong with this picture? Now, keeping in mind that Jose Ramirez has been was injured at the beginning of the year. So it'll take some time for him to percolate. But hopefully we can start to see some patience from him as time goes along. One of the things that was fun about yesterday's game was that Edwin Encarnacion still swings at junk. So he did homer. But that was about it.
And say, go ahead.
No, that's it.
I just was gonna say I did see some pretty colorful Facebook comments on the Indians Facebook page, and most of them were like, "Oh, of course, as soon as we let Encarnacion go, he burns us with a home run." But you know, I think
when he homered yesterday, and we still won, so who cares? I mean, we know that Edwin Encarnacion swings a junk and belts the ball. That's what he's going to be. That is his style. I don't even know if you want to call it philosophy, but I like style better. Thank you. Yeah. Style of baseball. He's not going to change, even though he should, depending on the team that he's with. So
I think with a lot of hitters, and I'm not comparing Encarnacion to people like this, but you have, I know Sammy Sosa was notorious for either homering or striking out, and then I don't know if McGuire was like that too. I think he kind of was, and and maybe Jim Tomian sometimes too.
Well, and they're taking the cue from those guys that they grew up watching, and so for me as a student of the game, it's really fun to see somebody work the count and then also make them pay for it. So
right.
I wish we would see that more, but kind of feels like, get off my lawn. So you unfundamental youngsters,
stiffs.
right.
But no, dude. Who'd you go with to the game today?
It was a friend's bachelor party, so we had two others with us, and that was really fun. But we just every other inning we were just looking at each other like, how much worse can it get? And then it did.
Oh.
And then I have to say, this is a throwaway bit, but I think it's really funny. The Cleveland fan base at the game was like a bunch of uneducated homers because, yesterday they gave Carrasco a standing ovation after he'd given up 4 solo shots.
Jeez.
Like, that is not a good day. That should not be applause. That should be quiet or nothing. Or if you want to boo, go ahead and boo. But I think that's ridiculous, too.
Well, I think for them it was sarcasm because I've seen times where, I think we're at the, Indians-Yankees game. Yeah, I was at an Indians-Yankees game with some friends of mine, and thank God we were flirting with some cute girls on the way in because that ended up being a 9-2 Yankees win, which really sucked.
Yeah.
And you had some drunk idiots in the top section of the bleachers going, "Here we go, Brownies, here we go."
No. This was like an entire, this was the entire stadium. This was not just a group of localized drunkards. Yeah. So I wish that we could bring more people in to the stadium itself, and I wish that more of them would be students at the game. I mean, we can't force it on anybody, but it's like, what are you actually doing here right now? I understand that a lot of people don't really care about the game, and that's fine. It's a really fun thing to go and hang out in the ballpark on a really nice day. I get it. But it's just kind of disheartening sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
And one other thing, and then we'll get off of this for at least a little bit. The music choices were absurd today.
Please do tell.
Yeah, so after we had gone down, I think 10-0, and that's how it stayed. One of the songs for the in between half innings was "I Feel Good," and from James Brown. And I turned to my friend and I said, "I don't feel good. I want to throw up. What about this is they should be doing a romantic ballad like Journey or Foreigner or something, not this." And he said, "Well, they could have done Highway to Hell." But they kind of redeemed themselves. The music people at the end after the game. They started playing Justin Bieber's "Sorry," and I was like, "That's the first one you got right." So we've got Chicago, the White Sox coming in starting tomorrow, and you just feel like there are teams in the Central that we should easily handle, and we've not done so. Right. The sweep that Kansas City gave us a couple weeks back, etc. And I think if we want to challenge the Twins, who are playing well, we have to beat the teams we're supposed to. So, see what happens.
And one more thing before we move on to the next topic. For the Indians, I think, we'll find out how good they are, like you said, when they win or lose in the division. But I think it's good to have at least one other team there in the division challenging them, because last year they were all in rebuilding mode, and Cleveland still had some pieces from 2017, 2018 left over, and so naturally they won the division, and then they got waxed by the Astros in the first round. So if Cleveland does come back and win the division later in the year, at least they'll be tested a little bit. So. But no, I'll tell you one thing for Cleveland fans: if things are going wrong, at least they have one of two things. They either have sarcasm or a sense of humor, or both. So,
and both is really funny, actually.
Right.
Especially if from intelligent fans. So.
Yeah. But let's go down to Central Ohio now and see what's up with the Blue Jackets, Tony. What are you thinking? What did you see?
Goodness.
What did you see in Game 5 the other day?
This is a resilient group, but Boston on the road is an incredibly difficult team to play against anyway. Mm-hmm. And when you give up a lead of 2 goals, it's very hard to dig out of. And I was ecstatic. I was going bananas when we did tie it at 3, but we ended up losing 4-3. And it's like, boy, if we could just put even 15 minutes together on the road in Boston, which is almost impossible, I would feel so much better. Now we're down 3-2, going back to Columbus. I've been talking to some friends about this. I wouldn't be surprised if Columbus just blows them out.
In Game 6?
Yeah, because you're at home. The fan base is mobilized. They don't want the Cinderella run to end, like you've been saying. And we'll see what happens. But I hope that it's 3-1, 4-2, at least a statement win. I'll take 1-0 too, but I want them to have to think about it going back to Boston for Game 7, which is a risky proposition, but one I think we can definitely do it. It's just going to be a really tall mountain to climb. So see what happens on Monday evening.
Absolutely. When is the puck drop? I think it's 7:30.
I have to check on that.
So,
but yes, it will be Monday evening, and maybe in the show notes we can put. Let me just check. We have the technology here. So let's hear from you on Stipe for the moment, and go from there.
Folks, I was really wound up as soon as I found out last week that Stipe Miocic would get another shot at the heavyweight championship belt for the UFC. I didn't think he'd get a direct shot. I thought he'd have to win a couple more undercard fights and work his way back up, because for those of you who watched his last fight, he lost the fight last summer to Daniel Cormier, who's a great fighter in his own right and one of the greatest heavyweights ever, by knockout. So, of course, it was in the first round, and people that are either just MMA fans or DC fans are like, why would Stipe deserve a direct title shot? He got knocked out in the first round, which makes sense. But, like, when you had Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Cormier, which was what it was going to be, you had Brock Lesnar getting off of a steroid suspension, coming back for a direct title shot. Well, Stipe's point of contention was, I've defended the belt 3 times up until last summer, and yet this guy gets off of a suspension, and his first chance he gets a title shot. What about me?
Right.
And so I think as soon as Lesnar decided to go back to WWE, then Dana White was probably rolling his eyes, saying, "Okay, we'll give you your shot."
Right.
Because it's for those of you who follow MMA, it's no secret that Stipe and Dana White, the president of the promotion, do not like each other. I remember laughing. I think it was after Stipe beat Francis Ngannou, which was he was a heavy underdog. It was January 2018. He beat him, and he took the belt directly out of Dana White's hands and handed it to his coach. Now, it's the customary thing for the UFC president to put the belt around the waist of the champion, but he basically yanked the belt out of Dana's hands and gave it to his coach, and Dana had the biggest frown on his face, which, personally, I'm not a Dana White fan myself. But
why is that?
I just don't like, I know he's running his own business, but he doesn't give a lot of these underdog fighters, much of a chance. There doesn't seem like, what do I say this? He gives fighters a better chance who can promote fights. And when I say promote fights, I mean talk smack. I know you hype stuff up, but that's why you see Conor McGregor and all these other guys get tons of title shots or tons of money and pay-per-views is because they have mouths. They talk, they run their mouths, they jack their jaw. Stipe's done it a little bit, but he's normally known for just fighting and getting the job done in the octagon. So it's kind of boring for Dana White. He's like, you got Conor McGregor, the Irish loudmouth, who I think is going to actually retire from UFC. Yeah. But then you have Stipe, the quiet but humble fireman, who the loudest he is when he's in the octagon kicking some other guy's butt. So
right, yeah. And just a note on our previous topic: the Jackets and Bruins will contest Game 6 at 7:00. That will be on NBCSN at 7 tomorrow.
Right. But back to Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier. Their second fight is set to take place August 17th in Anaheim, California. And I'm imagining this is going to be the standard $60 pay-per-view fight. And I know Dad bought the Francis Ngannou fight last January, and I went nuts after he won that one. So I hope I'm out of my parents' house by then. But if I'm out on my own, I'm buying that fight, and he's gonna have a drinking buddy that night.
Right.
But that'll be an interesting fight. I'm really not sure which way that'll go because with Ngannou, Stipe's last win, Ngannou was a big striker, but he wasn't much of a wrestler. Whereas Daniel Cormier, is a great wrestler and a great grappler, and and we'll see where it goes. But I love Stipe, but if he's not prepared, it would not surprise me if he lost again because he walked into the last knockout that he suffered with DC, and DC just knocked him out. So, but yeah, because I think it's interesting. You would have had, if it was DC versus Lesnar, you would have had, I think, a huge draw in terms of money. But as far as this fight with Cormier and Stipe, what do I want to say? I don't know if what's the word, reunification of the title or whatever. But
yes, exactly.
It's the reunification of the championship, and and you have the two greatest heavyweights of all time squaring off, arguably. So I don't see what's wrong about that, but we'll see what happens in August in Anaheim, California. In the meantime, I'll be foaming at the mouth whenever I think about that fight.
Yeah, so that and college football, you're going to have a very eventful August, my friend.
Oh, man. Well, let's think about it. Let's just dream about it for a second. Let's say Stipe wins that fight, gets the belt back. He's from Cleveland, and then the Browns start winning football games.
You're going to be incoherent. We're going to have a large show, and then you're just going to have to be off the air for a couple of weeks to try to contain your excitement. We're going to have some premium content then, if all these things go your way, man. Seriously. Little bit of notes on the NBA. I don't know how many of you saw this, but the other night, there was a 4 overtime game with Denver, and it ended up being 140-137. But today, Toronto stole one in Philly, 101-96. Kawhi Leonard with 39 points. Kawhi Leonard doing Kawhi things, and so then in the next matchup of that epic series, Portland and Denver tonight on TNT at 7, which I will certainly be watching or at least following. Cannot wait for that. So the NBA.
Won that go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask who won the 4 overtime game. I saw it, but I didn't
Portland
see it.
Did, yeah.
Portland won? Wow. Wow. I bet those guys slept good after that one.
Oh, man. I probably would have slept for 16 hours or something. And then, what a job. I don't usually say this, so mark it down. What a job by the Houston Rockets and James Harden. He actually penetrated some and got some layups last night. And they are on the board in their series with the Warriors. So it's 2-1.
Okay.
Yep. With game four upcoming in Houston. So we'll see what happens there. But it's not. 4 overtime games are incredibly rare anyway, but to have one in the playoffs is just phenomenal.
Wow. And with the NBA playoffs being a momentum-driven business, it makes you wonder how much Denver is hurting. Or
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Do we have video, guys?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yep. There we are.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. But going back to, saying the NBA is a playoff or a momentum-driven league, it makes you wonder, teams will fold or be emboldened based on one game, and it's a normal 4-quarter game. You can imagine how big the momentum is with a 4 overtime game. So,
Yep, you got it.
Wow. Wow. I know the Cavaliers aren't in the playoffs, but I still can't stand the Warriors, so I have to root for whoever's playing
Right,
against
right.
them. I just can't. I
One
can't
is
stand the
just it's
cockiness.
yeah. Well, frankly, I can't stand the cockiness of Houston either, but that's another story. Um, Imagine, if you will, if James Harden actually had some form of intelligence as far as shot selection. He's a
Yeah,
giant chucker. At least Curry is a chucker that knows his range. The
right,
problem is that James Harden also knows his range, but when he is not hitting, he continues to shoot the shots, the bad
right,
shots. You
right. And
know,
that's, I mean, I guess it's different when someone's a player versus when you're a fan, but I,
right?
I've never understood it. Like when a team, like I can understand a team's arsenal, like with the Cavaliers a year or two ago, they were a great 3-point shooting team, but there would
Hmm.
be nights where they would just not be hitting threes and they still keep jacking them up. It's like,
Right,
go inside.
right.
It's not
Do
working.
something. Get fouled if you can't
Right,
score. Well, and I
right.
remember from Game 7 with, I believe it was with the Warriors a year ago in the Western Conference Finals. Um, Two players, or maybe the entire Houston team, I'll have to look at this. They were
Right.
8 of 32 from
Oh
three.
man, that's
That will
25%.
that will not get it done. That will
No.
not get it done against a great team, a dynastic team. So
Oh geez.
it'll be really interesting to see what kind of momentum Houston can carry, still being at home and trying to tie the series up.
Well, let's just hope if they lose, they don't whine about the officiating. I've heard a lot about
Well,
that.
well, I'll tell you what. The Warriors and the Rockets always whine about the officiating. Even if it was perfect, they would figure out a way to feel offended. I think that they use it as a kind of chip on the shoulder to kind of motivate themselves. I mean, why do you need that to motivate yourself? You're a professional in the playoffs, playing well. It's like, why do you need that? I mean, I understand that you can use as much motivation as you can, but that's just silly. Not every call is a personal attack on the Warriors or the Rockets.
Uh, yeah, I hear you. And one more thing to say before we move on to the last topic of the
Yes.
show. I don't know why, but I was specifically reminded of my grandpa Keith McKee, which is my mom's dad. Shout out to him. But
Right.
he's like he is very opinionated. He'll let you know exactly what he's thinking on a
Right.
certain thing. And I forget what game it was. I think it was when the Cavs were in the playoffs a few years ago. But this applies here to the Rockets and the Warriors. He said, I have no respect for the NBA. Those guys get ticky-tack fouls and then they whine about everything. I have more respect for the college players who play the game for that and not just for the money.
Right.
So,
One, absolutely. But here's the thing, too. I think that the players have kind of taken on the personality of their coaches at some point. And I used to love Steve Kerr. I still respect him quite a bit because you don't win that much and not know what you're doing. But he has become an absolute hothead. And if I were a ref, there are coaches that I would tee up before the game even starts, and he would be one. It is one of the funniest things on the internet if you get a chance to see it. Trying to keep a straight face is impossible when you watch Larry Brown, the former Cavs coach.
or Mike Brown.
Sorry, Larry Brown. Apologies to Larry Brown, who never did anything like that, as far as I can tell. The former Kansas coach, champion with Danny Manning. Anyway, Mike Brown, who's a very placid, kind of laid-back guy, trying to restrain Steve Kerr, which is a fool's errand. I mean, he's going to get thrown out anyway. So, yeah, I don't like it at all.
I, I remember the first time. I don't know who showed who that first, but the
I
first
think I
time,
showed it to you.
yeah, I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
Oh God, I still laugh at it.
Yeah.
Oh, but no, I don't know what it is, but I remember like with Steve Kerr before the Warriors really started winning championships like crazy. But I remember Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. I really used to like them, but now
Well,
it just
when even after they won their first two, I was okay.
the,
And then I think they started believing the hype, and deservedly so. But the arrogance doesn't have to come. See, I think there's a difference between the Showtime Lakers arrogance and the Celtics arrogance and what's happening now. Um, Early on, I don't want to say early on, but 30 years ago, it was
right,
more about we are going to make you suffer because we are going to play it harder than you,
right.
and we're going to make you earn it, and the bad boys is an exception. We're not going to talk about them because I'll just be mad and it would be the whole show. But I really think it's a different kind of mindset now, because there's a feeling of I'm offended if you call a foul on me, even if everybody in the building saw it, and I just don't like it. And it happens. I think it happens at all levels now. We have to remember that the only time, which is why I'm not going to be a ref, the only time that we appreciate the officiating is when we don't notice it.
So, but yep, I definitely hear you. I mean, I don't know what to think of the NBA anymore. I've kind of stayed away from it, but shifting gears to another sport, I saw a very, very heartwarming thing recently. I think it was yesterday. Steelers and former Ohio State linebacker Ryan Shazier just got married. I'm trying to remember his wife's name, but he just got married, I think, this last week or so, and they showed him dancing at his wedding. Full-blown dancing, walking, normal, which...
That's an incredible story.
December of 2017, he suffered a major spinal injury, and I was just glad he was okay from the standpoint he didn't die, because when you have that sort of...
it was a very close run thing, as I recall.
Right, and I remember, I don't exactly know what kind of hit he suffered. I remember watching it, but when his neck snapped back and he kind of just went limp, it's like, oh no, and I don't care what team, I don't care what team he plays for. It's just, that's when you know, whether you're a Browns fan or Steeler fan or whatever, that's when you know that humanity and caring for one's fellow man go far beyond the game of football. And it's great to see him up and moving. And I think he's expected to play. I don't know if he's going to play this year. I think he's still rehabbing. They're kind of just taking their time. I think the Steelers still have him on their team, and they're going to keep him. But I think he's going to sit out this year, and he'll be ready to go in 2020, which even though he's against my team, it'll be great to see him back out there. So,
well, he's one of the classy ones, so it's nice to see stories about guys that continue to be classy even against all those odds.
Right, absolutely. I'm still just shocked he's as far along as he is 18 months later. Because when you have that,
and I think it speaks to his character. I think it really does. I think that a lot of other players would have been like, well, that's pretty much it, and he was not ready to be done, and he proved it to himself. So, we'll see what happens.
Let's just hope he doesn't suffer another injury.
That's right. We don't need that. Nobody should go through that twice.
But, yep. Tony, do you have anything else to add before we sign off here?
I hope you all have a great week. Feel free to get in touch with us if you like on the YouTube page, and we'll be back with you as soon as we have some more great material for you. Hope you've enjoyed yourselves, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Until next time, folks, this is episode 2 of the Luke and Tony Sports Hour with Luke Wickiser and Tony Snyder. Have a good one, guys.
Take care, everybody.